ready to keep going on our great new writing project. So I have Mr. Mo out because you are going to need your conversation buddy today. We're just going to use them for a little bit. So if you have your conversation buddy, go ahead, bring them to our lesson and just have them sit right next to you as we get started. So Mr. Mo, my conversation buddy, is just going to sit right next to me as we start our writing lesson for Monday. Okay, awesome people. So as we know, we are in our narrative writing unit. We are writing a story, and we get to write a creative story this time. That means you get to use your wonderful imagination and brain to create your own brand new story. So far, we have used a character map, a bubble map, to brainstorm our character and their traits. And last week is when we started talking about plot. Remember, plot is the events that happen in our story. What happens to your character? We were learning about the different parts of our plot last week because today you are going to get to take the reins and make your own plot. So let's check out our learning target. It says, I can create a story plot with an introduction, problem, and solution. So this keyword is create, second grade. That means you are going to get to take your character description and brainstorm the events that are going to happen in your story. So we're just brainstorming today, getting ready to take this map and brainstorm and eventually turn it into a complete and full story. And as we learned last week, there are three main parts to our story. And as we used this roller coaster plot map last week, with the beginning, middle, and an end. Just like a roller coaster can be fun and exciting and keep you on your toes, so can a story, with its introduction, problem, and solution. So let's remind ourselves of these three parts and what's important in each of them. Okay, so in our introduction of the story, that's the first part, where we get to meet certain elements of the story. Who do we get to meet? We get to meet the characters, the one that you created. Who is the story about? As well as the setting, where the story is taking place. The introduction, it sets up the story, gets the reader ready with all the information they need, and hooks them in. So we've got our introduction, and then as we get up our roller coaster, we reach the problem. What's the problem in a story? What's the problem? It's the problem that happens to the character, a challenge, a difficulty, an event that this main character has to face. That's the problem. And what we're really going to work on today is make sure our problem connects to our main character. The problem and our main character are going to relate to one another, and we're going to focus on how to make that happen today. But after the problem, on our way down the roller coaster, we get the solution, a happy ending. But what is getting solved? The solution solves the problem. This problem gets fixed at the end of the story. The main character is able to overcome that problem. So these are the three awesome parts of our roller coaster that we're going to brainstorm for our own character today. Okay, we've had a break from this. I want us to make sure we're really ready to brainstorm by doing mirror words again for our story plot. So are you ready to do mirror words with me? We're going to do our roller coaster. Here we go. Mirror words. In the beginning of a story, we meet the characters and the setting. in the middle of a story. We learn the problem. At the end of a story, the problem gets solved. Mirrors down. Thank you so much. So, using this knowledge of the three parts of our story, we're going to start to think about how can we brainstorm our own. And like I mentioned, our introduction has to connect to the problem. We're going to take the description of our character, what we already discovered, what we already did on our bubble map, and based off our character's traits, what they like, dislike, we're going to brainstorm a problem that directly relates to the kind of character we need. So the problem needs to be something that your character would likely face based off their traits and what they like or dislike. So today we're going to practice making some connections between a character and their problem. So this is when you are going to need your conversation buddy out. So make sure they're right next to you because we're about to talk with them. So with our conversation buddy today, we're going to use this sheet. It looks a little crazy, but we're only going to use parts of it. So on this sheet, we are going to read different descriptions of a character. It gives us a trait, a little background about them, what they like to do. And based off that understanding of a character, we are going to brainstorm a problem they might face. Because the problem is going to be directly related to what kind of character they are. So let's practice so you can see what I mean. So first up, can you look at this square right here, this first one? I'm going to read it to us, and I want you to follow along. It says, Liz the lizard was a great artist. She painted beautiful, colorful pictures. One day, there was a problem. Okay, so we were introduced to Liz the lizard. And this paragraph gave a little bit of description about her. She was an artist. She liked to paint pictures. So this is what we know about Liz. So based off this information, what's a problem she could face? If someone's an artist, they love to paint pictures, what would be difficult for them? What do you think? Mr. Mo, I think a problem that Liz might face is that she ran out of paints. She has no more paint supply left, and that's a problem, and she has to fix it. So because Liz is an artist and she loves to paint, a problem she could face is she no longer has any supplies. That's just one problem. There's endless possibilities. So right now, second grade, I want you to pause and talk to your conversation buddy. What could be another problem that Liz could face because she's an artist and likes to paint? So go brainstorm another problem, talk to your buddy, and then come on back. Pause. Okay, I wish I could hear all the awesome problems that you brainstormed, but keep that knowledge in your brain as we think about another example. Okay, can we look at this box down here where it says Zippy? We're going to read about Zippy, figure out what kind of character she is, and then brainstorm a problem based on what we know. Okay, let's read. It says, Zippy was a squirrel with superpowers. She always helped the people in her neighborhood. One day, there was a problem. I'm going to read it again. Zippy was a squirrel with superpowers. She always helped the people in her neighborhood. One day, there was a problem. So what did we learn about Zippy? Zippy has superpowers, and and she loves to help people in her neighborhood. So, Mr. Mo, based off what we know, that Zippy has superpowers and she loves to help others, what could be a problem she might face? Ooh, I have a problem. What if, second grade, Zippy woke up one day and she didn't have her superpowers anymore? They disappeared, so she doesn't know how to help her neighbors. That could be a problem that directly relates to what kind of character she is. Because Zippy has superpowers and loves to help her neighbors, a problem could be she woke up without any powers. Then she has to fix it. But that's just one problem. I want you to brainstorm what could be another problem Zippy the super squirrel might face. Remember, there's endless possibilities, no right or wrong, but it has to make sense for the kind of character we just read about. Okay, get your conversation buddy back out, talk to them about another problem, and then come on back. Pause. Okay, second grade, thank you so much for talking to your conversation buddy. I hope you were able to brainstorm and think about how your character and your problem have to relate to one another. They need to be connected for your story to flow and make the most sense. So, now I'm going to give you an example of how I took my character map and used it to help brainstorm my own problem and make a plot map. But before we get to that example, can you stand up with me so we can move our bodies in writing? Okay, are you up? So, second grade, which of these would you rather visit? I know we can't go to them right now, but which would you pick? Would you rather go to a water park where there's water rides? If so, you're gonna skip in line. Or would you rather go to just a theme park, an amusement park where there's roller coasters? If so, you're gonna run in place for 5 seconds. So pick between a water park or just like an amusement theme park. What would you choose? I love water parks, so I'm gonna skip in place for 5 seconds. You got your pick? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good job moving with me. So come on, sit back down, and I'm going to show you how I took my bubble map about my character and translated it into a story map. Okay, second grade. So as we know, my character is Mr. Mo. I'm going to create an entire story around my character of Mr. Mo. So, in the introduction of my story is where I'm going to brainstorm and write down all the character traits that I want to emphasize in my story. You have a lot on your map, but you don't need to include them all in your story. You're just going to write down and pick the most important ones that you want to highlight. So, in the introduction of my story, I'm going to mention, Mr. Mo is a friendly monster who loves to help his family. In addition, he loves to cook for his family. So in that introduction of my story, I'm going to make sure to write about that Mr. Mo is friendly and he loves to cook for his family. That is how I'm going to start my story once I eventually start writing. And I just wrote down my ideas on my story map, introducing different characteristics about Mr. Mo. So that's what we're all going to do first. Write down what we want to highlight about our character in our introduction. Once we have that, we have to connect our character to our problem like we've just been practicing. So based off what you said about your character, for example, I said Mr. Mo was friendly and he loves to cook for his family, what could be a problem he might face because of that? So this is what I brainstormed second grade. Based off Mr. Mo, the problem in my story is going to be Mr. Mo realizes he did not make enough mac and cheese for the big family feast. If Mr. Mo loves to cook for his family, a problem that will be really hard for him is if there's not enough food. What would happen and how would Mr. Mo fix that? The kind of character he is and the problem I brainstormed directly relate to each other. They're talking about the same element that Mr. Mo loves to cook, which is exactly what you're going to do when you brainstorm a problem for your character that you created. So we've got introduction, we've got the problem, and then what about the solution? You get to decide how does your character solve this problem. So, knowing that Mr. Mo didn't have enough food, I decided the solution was going to be fun, and he was going to solve it by Mr. Mo sneaks out to McDonald's and gets burgers for everyone. That is how Mr. Mo is able to overcome his problem and get enough food by sneaking out to McDonald's. And in this story map, second grade, I came up with all these ideas. It was what I wanted to write my story about, what I thought was silly and fun. And you're going to create your own problem and solution. There's no right way and no right or wrong answers. Just as long as your introduction, your problem, and solution all connect, that it flows nice and smoothly. This is what you are going to do with your own story map right now. So awesome, people. In the same notebook you've been using, or on a different piece of paper, but one that you're going to save, you're going to need to keep this. So please make sure you keep this in a safe place. So on a new piece of paper, wherever that may be, you are going to create your own story map with 6 boxes just like you see up here, with introduction, problem, and solution. In each part of this box, you're going to brainstorm the beginning, middle, and end of your story. So like I just showed as an example, your introduction is when you are going to talk about your character. You're going to describe the key descriptions that you think are the most important and want to include in your story. For example, I said Mr. Mo was friendly and he loved to cook for his family. So as you write down your character traits, I want you to draw a nice picture of your character. Use color, use detail, so you can really have that descriptive image to help you write really beautifully once we get there. So you're going to, in the introduction, write about your character and draw a picture of them. The next is the problem. You're going to take what you wrote about your character and create a problem based off that. It's your own decision, your own imagination. So down here in the problem box, you're going to write exactly what the problem is. You're going to write just in one sentence like I did, write very clearly what is the problem that your character is facing. For example, Mr. Mo didn't have enough food for the family feast. One sentence, but very clear. In addition to writing the problem, just like before, I want you to draw a picture of the problem. Make a beautiful image where you show your character, the expression on their face, what they're doing. So we can see your problem as you have the problem, then you're going to brainstorm a solution. How does the character solve the problem? And this is up to you again. You get to decide how the character is able to overcome it. As long as it all connects and makes sense based off your character. And of course, just like every other section, I want to see a lovely picture of your solution as well. Show that happy ending. How does your character feel now? What are they doing once the problem got solved? So you're going to have 3 parts that you need to write down in words your ideas, and then draw a picture of that awesome idea that you had. This is just a stepping stone to writing. We're just getting our ideas down on paper. So do the best you can and make it fun and creative. We're going to need to save this once we start writing our story, but this is just a step for us to get ready. So 2nd grade, make sure you have a nice blank and clean piece of paper as you build your story map for your own character. So get your imagination cap on, and I can't wait to see what you create.